Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking specifically about Hasbro CEO Brian Goldner and his recent recognition that Hasbro owns Dungeons and Dragons. All right, and specifically why Ravnica and Eberron happened right now. Okay, all right. So actually, the introduction of Ravnica. The announcement that Ravnica would be in the new Dungeons and Dragons setting is an absolutely massive announcement. It's a fork in the road in the history of Dungeons and Dragons. It's a very, very, very big deal. By the way, I'm sorry I have not talked about Eberron. I just feel like there's so much to talk about with Ravnica that I literally can't get to it, right? There's just so much going on with this decision for Ravnica that it's incredible, right? So I just want to talk about what's happening right now and why we're seeing the Ravnica Eberron change, right? And what's happening within Hasbro and the recent recognition by Hasbro that they own Dungeons and Dragons, right? All right, so let's talk it through, right? It's pretty interesting. All right, so here's what happened. We have so Adam Cobell, brilliant TRPG commentator. He is the creator of Dungeon World, which is a fantastic indie tabletop role-playing game. Adam Cobell tweeted out a link to actually a business story, right? And this was and it had a video with Jim Cramer interviewing Brian Goldner. All right, so let's talk about who these two people are. So Jim Cramer is specifically he is a stock analyst mixed with a game show host, right? So he has this show called Mad Money. Actually, George Clooney did a movie where he kind of did a parody of him. But this guy Jim Cramer, he kind of japes around on his show and does these really crazy antics and talks about stocks, right? It's this weird, like, it's a really strange show where, he's just kind of like doing things to keep your attention, almost the way you would do with kindergartners, but he's actually talking about high-level stocks. It's pretty strange, right? But his show's been around for, probably a decade. It's been around for a long time, and he has a lot of followers, and real CEOs talk to him on the reg, right? So here's what was happening. So Jim Cramer, this game show host, stock analyst, television celebrity, is talking to Hasbro's CEO, Brian Goldner, right? So, and so basically Jim Cramer's talking to Brian Goldner about the stock value of Hasbro, right? That's what the whole thing is for. Now, this entire interview, this is kind of interesting because this whole interview is a form of kabuki, right? So, like, I think Jim Gardner, he wants ratings and he wants to give information to his viewers that are going to allow them to make stock buying decisions, right? And Brian Goldner, he wants to signal to the market that Hasbro's stock is strong and you should be buying it, right? So they each want something, right? They don't really care about each other at all. Like, this is, Brian Goldner needs this, Jim Cramer needs this, right? Well, in this conversation about the value of Hasbro's stock, right, a few things were mentioned. One, and this is the key piece of information, we are dealing with Ravnica and Eberron right now, because of the collapse of Toys R Us, right? That's what Jim Gardner was talking to Brian Goldner about, the Hasbro CEO, Brian Goldner. He was saying, hey, Toys R Us just closed. Mattel just got a swift kick in the teeth. Mattel is hurting. How are you guys doing, right? Because this is calamitous for Hasbro, right? Where are they going to sell their My Little Pony stuff, right? Where are they going to sell their Transformers? Where are they going to sell Play-Doh, right? These are all brands that Hasbro owns, right? Where are they going to sell Magic the Gathering? Well, the answer is there are places they can still sell them. One is Amazon. Amazon is a massive risk, right? Amazon is not a great place Amazon is a great place for buyers. It is not a great place for sellers. Amazon demands incredibly low prices from their, from the people they carry their content for, and it's not always a great place for the creators. It's a great place for consumers. Amazon is not a great place for creators, all right, overall. So, then and there are friendly local game shops. There's very few of them, right? The reality is there are no more, absolutely zero, national toy chains left, right? Maybe FAO Schwartz, they have so few toy shops that it barely matters. But the reality is this is going to be the first Christmas in history where, a mother and a father who have children they love will not be able to easily walk into a toy store and buy toys for their kids. Now, they're going to do it online, but it's sad and it's humbling and it makes you think the world is a little less cool, right? Now, this is affecting the stock price of Hasbro, right? So, I think this is me, all right? So this event happens, the collapse of Toys R Us. It impacts every toy company in the world. Hasbro is a toy company, right? Mattel is reeling from this. I've been reading articles about Mattel just really, really hurting from this. They could go out of business. It's possible, right? It's not, there's a percentage chance. Everybody's debating on what that chance is, but they're in trouble, right? And Hasbro, honestly, I have to say, listening to this interview, you could tell Brian Goldberg. Oh man, I forget. Brian Goldberg. Right? He is very serious about the brands he owns, and he wants to protect them, right? And also, like a small thing, they talked about China. Like the vast majority of products that Wizards of the Coast makes are made in China, right? So they were talking about, well, we right now, President Trump is threatening trade wars, right? So this is going to affect the ability for Hasbro to do business, right? And so he's saying, what do you guys do? Is all your manufacturing still in China? And Brian Goldberg said, no, 30% of our 30% of all our manufacturing has come to America. And so he's talking all this, and then at the end of the interview with Jim Cramer, he talks about Dungeons and Dragons, right? And Jim Cramer starts the interview. Man, I hate when this happens. Saying that he had thought Dungeons & Dragons was kind of a dead property, right? Which it's not. It's probably doing better than it's ever done. And Brian Goldberg had to tell him that. He said, no, Brian Goldberg says to Jim Cramer, no, Dungeons & Dragons is doing great. We're doing really good. But he also immediately talked about, we're going to do some online stuff. We're going to make some apps. Oh, my gosh. It's just like, by the way, when Ravnica was decided on, right? When we decided that Ravnica, when Wizards of the Coast decided that Ravnica would be the new setting for Dungeons and Dragons, not Planescape, not Spelljammer, not Birthright, not Faerun, not Greyhawk, not Calamar, not all these wonderful settings we already had that everybody was begging to see, but Ravnica, the setting that absolutely no one asked for, right? I guarantee you, I would bet the word synergy was used, right? We're gonna do some synergy. We already own Magic. We already own Dungeons and Dragons. Let's get some synergy going, right? Like, come on. Oh, it's just so painful to watch, right? All right, so it's the right decision from a business perspective, right? But it's win-win, everybody. It's tough. It's tough to see, all right? So Brian Goldberg, I think the reason why we're looking at this situation right now, is the reason we're seeing this situation overall emerge is the collapse of Toys R Us. I think either, the only thing is a question is the timing, in my opinion. This is what I think happened. I think they saw the collapse of Toys R Us coming up, or they were reacting to the collapse of Toys R Us, and they said, hey, we got to handle this, right? And so basically, I think Hasbro looked at every single property it has and says, what can we do to get the most out of our products, which is sound business decision. I don't like that Ravnica is the new setting. From a business decision, from bringing money in, from making Dungeons & Dragons a money-making engine, it makes sense, right? And actually, I'm starting to have a much warmer opinion of this whole thing. And the reason why is Hasbro is having a hard time right now. They're not struggling yet, but the loss of Toys R Us, the loss of a place to easily sell My Little Pony, Transformers, Play-Doh, right? That's tough. That's tough on them, right? They need to deal with this. And so I think the call went out to every single product lead saying, what can you do to bring money in the door, right? And actually, you know, maybe Mike Schmerls was the one who had realized this long ago and said, hey, you know, we can bring money in the door by using the Magic the Gathering setting, right? So, and the reality is, I really don't like this, but one of the things is you have to remember debts, right? I'm a person who pays my debts, right? It's important. Like, it's adulting, right? You know, when you have a debt, you pay it, right? And the reality is, the Dungeons & Dragons community owes a debt to Hasbro, right? Hasbro has carried the Dungeons & Dragons property for years, right? And I think well over a decade. And basically, for a long time, I think they literally didn't even remember they owned Dungeons & Dragons, right? Some of the decisions that have been made with Dungeons & Dragons, it was always a side note for them. I don't think they ever really, you know, they bought Wizards of the Coast to get Magic the Gathering. Nobody bought Wizards of the Coast to get Dungeons & Dragons, right? And even Dungeons & Dragons was bought by Wizards of the Coast as a whim. They're like, oh yeah, I play Dungeons & Dragons in my basement. Wizards of the Coast guy, I think it was it Peter Adkinson, you know? They were just chock full of all this crazy money coming in from Magic the Gathering, and they literally just said, what am I going to do with all these millions sitting on my desk? Let's buy Dungeons & Dragons. Like, that's how it happened, right? Like, you know, which is crazy. It's crazy that this thing we love so much has just bounced around like a tennis ball from one owner to another owner. You know, very sad. Toys R Us to Wizards of the Coast to Hasbro. And, you know, so it's pretty crazy. You know, it's really crazy. Just look at all the things that are happening. But that's the key is we are looking at Ravnica right now because of the fall of Toys R Us. So I think Wizards of the Coast Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro saw it very early, saw that this could be coming. I think, or this might have been an idea that was sitting in a folder somewhere, and then when the Hasbro suits came calling and said, what can you do to make money right now? They pulled this out, and it's a good idea. It's going to make money. I think it's a sound business decision. And while we don't like it, I think we kind of have to say, okay, I understand. And the reason why is Hasbro has served us for a long time by making Dungeons & Dragons, making sure that has continued to be. What do I care about most with Dungeons & Dragons? I care about most with Dungeons & Dragons that those 3 core rule books continue to get published. PHB, DMG, Monster Manual. I'd actually like them smashed into one book, but I want them printed, right? I love PDFs for tabletop role-playing games, but not for Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is the #1 game to keep what Gary built pure. I think it's absolutely critical that those books continue to get published with the words Dungeons & Dragons on the cover, with rules inside that you can use to sit around a physical table with 4 friends, 1 game master, 1 dungeon master, 4 players, play that game from the book. That is critical, and Hasbro has preserved that, right? So right now, Hasbro is under threat, right? They're under threat because the last remaining national toy chain, that existed at the macro level, is dead. It has died, and they need to squeeze every property for the money they can get right now. And actually, you know what? I'm okay with that. I really am. I'm not complaining. Oh, they're doing a money making move, man. I'm not, that's not me. I'm not doing it. I'm a dyed in the wool capitalist, right? And I love capitalism, and I love Dungeons and Dragons, and I love America. And those three things are intimately tied together like a braid, right? And so, I think that's awesome. And so, right now, it drives me crazy that we have Ravnica as the new Dungeons and Dragons setting. But you know what? They have served us well for a long time. Hasbro has served us well for a very long time and done the right thing and taken care of Dungeons and Dragons and really allowed the Dungeons and Dragons design team to prosper quietly and to do their thing without complaint. And now we need to be ready to let Hasbro do what it needs to do. That's my take. Please consider liking and subscribing.